Hey guys, Fazzy back here, and very exciting video here today, as Update 2 of the custom roster is now live on Xbox Series S and X. This update does continue the collaboration with Tactics, but also welcomes Tugi to the team. It was amazing having the opportunity to bring Tugi in to help out with this build of the custom roster and any other future builds going forward. We'll incorporate all our feedback, all our inputs, and all of our own ways of doing things. So definitely, if you are on Xbox Series X or S, definitely go take a look for this roster. It is under Fazzy X Tactics X Tugi V2. Definitely give it a download. Make sure you go and give it a like. But with that being said, let's jump into everything you can expect from Update 2 of our custom roster. Starting out with new created players and stage 1 of our new editing systems. So let's start out nice and simple here with the new created players. I can tell you firsthand there is at least, I want to say 200 new created players in this build of the custom roster. That goes from prospects, that goes to more alumni, that goes to more Easter egg players shown on screen there. Shout out to Rymo Curry, 2BC legend. But we already had like 500 players in the initial build. So yeah, we're adding at least, I want to say, another 200 players, just anyone you can think of more or less. And I also want to point out we actually do have a 2028 NHL entry draft class in there now. Before we just had going up to 2027 the first 3 years, but we went in and added a first round to 2028. This again, all those players are so far out, it's kind of hard to get an exact grasp on who's going to end up going where, but we did our best with it and just took a look at all the projections and tried to replicate that. But up next we have stage 1 of our new editing systems, and Tugi played a huge role in this. If you know anything about Tugi and how he does his custom rosters over the course of the years, he is very analytically driven, and when it comes to numbers, that is huge, as it should be. But sometimes numbers don't always tell the full story, and we basically came together, all the three of us, and kind of came to a system that more or less works for all of us. So I'll put that up on screen here. You can see that more or less everything is driven by save percentage. And I should say here quickly that Update 1, it's just going to be focusing on goalies for now, and future updates we will tackle different elements of the game. But obviously it's not the base in-game roster, so not everything technically has to be redone right now. So we're just kind of working it in phases. But like I said, you can see everything there. It is based more or less off save percentage, and sometimes the system still isn't perfect. A perfect example would be a guy like Tristan Jarry. Using the formula that we created, he comes out as somewhere, I want to say 88 overall, which I think you can say right now based off his start, just how he is as a goalie, that's definitely probably a little bit high for him. And that's where you're going to see some of those compromises between the three of us, where we could come to a rating that we more or less all agree with. But also we made quite a few changes based on future upcoming draft picks and goalies who have just been drafted. So I'll put that chart up here on screen, and you'll see that a lot of the guys that go first, second round, you're going to see those franchise goalies if it's a first round goalie. If it's a high second round pick, you're going to see somewhere either medium elite or high elite, and that's really just to get in franchise mode. When you're entering the draft, those guys will actually go in their appropriate spots. And since goalies don't have all that much trade value, it's not really the end of the world. And again, we want these guys to develop. These are technically real life prospects, so it should just give them a little bit of a advantage over the in-game created players. But moving on to the improvements when it comes to prospect roster cuts. And from Update 1, this was mainly the main criticism that I kind of saw going around, where guys like Anton Saleyev, AZ Buum, even sometimes an Ivan Demidov would end up getting released to free agency, just to kind of how the state of the game is and how not everything is working properly. Basically, we've gone in and tried to limit this as best as possible, but to illustrate this, let me jump into a franchise mode and I will show you guys the first couple of off seasons. So first off, what does it look like when you first jump into a franchise mode here? Let's go take a look. So this was never really an issue. Normally players didn't get dropped in that initial starting period. If you sort it by potential, you have 3 low top 9s, best of them being Alex and Nylander, all older guys who aren't going to end up impacting your franchise mode at all. If we go down here to defensemen, you just have Kalen Addison, who is still technically a free agent in real life, and then it just drops to medium bottom six players. And when it comes to goalies, you have Martin Jones, and then you have a few backups who do end up getting cut. Basically, with this, we more or less focused on anyone who is medium top 4 defensively, medium top 6 forward-wise, medium starter goalies, and up. We basically just want those top end prospects staying with their clubs. And you'll see that I just went through overall for goalies. You'll see that now for the free agent list, you're not going to really be able to sign anyone that good out of there that's going to really help out with your team when you are in franchise mode. But jumping into franchise mode looks pretty good right now. Let me go jump ahead a year to July 1st. Alright, so we are at our first off season here in franchise mode. This is where you would more or less see some of those bigger cuts end up happening. In my franchise mode I'm running now, I saw Saleev, I saw Ezi Buum end up going to free agency here, as well as a couple of medium top 6 players. So let's go look at it now. Sort it by UFA and go to potential. So you have Cyclikov. He is the one guy that technically has potential, even though he's 26. Really, that's just the Islanders making a decision not to bring him back. Outside of that, it is all top 6 forwards. Going down here, it just goes right into exact top 4 defensemen. So no prospects at all, at least the top ones there, looking much better than it was. Then it drops down to medium 9s. And when it comes to medium 9s, high 9s, you just don't have room for all of them in the contract spots, so some do slip through. Going to goalies here, looking pretty good here, except for, it looks like Quentin Miller. And interestingly enough, he actually doesn't start out as a starting goalie, so he doesn't get his ELC to prevent this, so it's a weird case of him actually growing here this year. But outside of that, it's just fringe starter goalies who weren't really the focus here, so there's just too many of them to give them all contract spots. So first year, free agency is looking really good compared to how it looked in Update 1. Let's go sim one more year and see how free agency looks in year 2. Alright, so we are at the year 2 off season. Let's go jump into free agency here to see if anyone slipped through the cracks. So going to UFAs, and once again sorting by potential. You have Kovalenko, you have Joe Veleno. Those are two guys that at this point they're 26 years old. That's just the club deciding not to bring them back. That's just how the sim's going to go. If they don't develop, they will get cut. Nothing we can do about that. Outside of that, it is just exact top 6 forwards. Continuing on down here, it goes right into those exact top 4 defensemen. So no amazing prospects getting cut for forwards or defensemen. And then just like normal, it goes down into the high 9 and the medium 9 players. Going to goalies here, actually looks like it turned out perfect. You have Quick, you have Reimer, but then it goes right into the fringe starters. So free agency looking so much better here in the early years. I do have to preface here, I can't guarantee that each and every single time it's going to work exactly perfect. With this game, unfortunately, you can never make those claims. There's sometimes the AI just makes really dumb decisions. One test I did, they just randomly cut Dostal after the first year. One time Wolf just got cut. And it's not consistent, anything like that. And players that are already under contract, that's nothing that we can control. So basically, how did we go ahead and fix all this stuff? Basically, we went through and gave everybody artificial ELCs. So basically, if you are a created player in the game, if you are, like I said, a medium top 4 defenseman, a medium top 6 forward, or a medium starter goalie and better, you will get your ELC. I know it's not ideal, I know it's better when we can just sign the contracts ourselves, but currently the game is not working as it should, and I would much rather have everyone just, signed and more or less ready to go than seeing reports of all these players getting cut and it ruining the immersion. And one thing I want to note about these entry-level contracts, everyone does get a 4-year ELC, so basically it's like they sign their contract at the end of this year. So this year technically would go down to 3, and then they would have a 3-year ELC starting next year. At least that was the idea that we came up with. Next up, we have 19 new created teams. And for the most part, these teams fall into 2 different categories. First off, you have 8 international teams. These are going to be all the teams that you see in the World Juniors here in just a couple of months. I kind of wanted to work ahead a little bit here and at least get the base teams in the game. So currently they're just going to have rosters from the base international teams. So now if you want to just substitute those into franchise mode, you want to mess around, go ahead, have fun. You can now put Team Canada versus Team US into franchise mode, use custom leagues, do whatever you would like. Did my best trying to recreate the jerseys, and honestly, for the most part, I think they turned out, not too bad. So those are the first 8 teams. Up next, we have the 6 PWHL teams. So I did these last year. I am bringing them back once again this year. All the 6 original teams. I tried to give them, at least some kind of an updated branding from all the new team names. I do have a little bit more I want to get to on the PWHL, but we will talk about that here once we get through the last few teams. So these are all kind of miscellaneous here. You have the Panthers, just an alternate version. You have the Albuquerque Aliens, that is a snipe and score series he's currently running. And then you have the Peg City Penny Pinchers by Tugi. So going back to the PWHL here very quick. So I faced a few issues when trying to recreate the PWHL. The main thing is I did this quite a bit earlier than I did last year. I want to say I did this in like January last year. So currently when you look at the 6 different created teams at time of recording, not all the rosters are actually full at the moment. So basically I had to go through, add everyone that was on a PWHL roster currently to these teams, but then I kind of had to fill out the remaining players with players from last year's teams, some of which have retired, but it's better than just, substituting low overall people in there. I know in particular the New York Sirens were really bad for that. They only had like half their roster announced at time of recording, and yeah, I had to kind of get creative with that. Also, I did want to point out, unfortunately, there is no official jerseys just yet for the new branding. So I basically took the last year PWHL jersey templates that I made and then just put, the new logo on top of them. Any future updates, anything like that, if we see anything come out, I will try and replicate that as best as possible. And then lastly, all of the updated transactions. And like every update we put out, all the transactions will be up to date to today's date. It has been about a month since we have done a roster update, so you'll see everything from the Lilligan trade, you'll see the Alexis Lafreniere extension, and the new Shea Theodore contract. So basically everything from October 8th to today's date should be updated in game. But overall, I think that is everything that you can expect from Update 2 of our NHL 25 custom roster. Like I said, ton of stuff here for you guys to go and dig into. I think this should be a pretty good update. Want to give a huge thanks again to both Tactics and Tugi. They put in so much work to this update. I know Tugi spent a lot of time in the document going through all the edits, everything that was needed. I spent a lot of time going through transcribing all those into the game, making all those created players, and Tactics I know spent a lot of just super late nights, continuing on with all the edits and making everything so much better in game. But like I said, if you are on the Xbox Series X or S consoles, definitely go check out this version of the custom roster. But that will do it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy Update 2 of the roster.